Before Elias left to return to the city, his father took him on one last trip. They drove up the winding coastal road to the lighthouse. Neither of them had been back since they left it nearly a year ago. The lighthouse stood as it always had, white and solitary against the sky. But it felt different now, smaller somehow, less imposing. The automated system had been installed, and the light still swept across the water each night, but there was no smoke from the keeper's quarters, no sign of human habitation. They climbed the cliff path together, taking their time. At the top, they stood where Elias had stood so many times before, looking out at the endless ocean. Do you ever regret it, leaving this place, leaving the life you knew? Thomas was quiet for a moment, considering. I regret the years I spent here as a ghost, he said finally, but I don't regret leaving. This place was my refuge when I needed one, but it became my prison. Leaving it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was also the most necessary. Sometimes we have to let go of the safe harbor to find out what we're really capable of. Elias nodded, understanding completely. I used to stand here and look out at the sea and feel so trapped. I thought if I could just get away, everything would be perfect. But leaving wasn't the end of the struggle. It was just the beginning of a different one. The struggle to figure out who I am, what I want, how to build a life that matters. And have you figured it out? Asked Thomas. Some of it, Elias said. I know I want to write. I know I want to tell stories that help people feel less alone. I know I want to live honestly, even when it's hard. The rest, I guess I'm still figuring out. But that's okay. Maybe we're always figuring it out, right up until the end. That's wisdom right there, Thomas said, putting his arm around his son's shoulders. And it took me 60 years to learn it. You're already ahead of where I was at your age. They stayed at the lighthouse for another hour, walking around it, touching the familiar stones, saying goodbye to a chapter of their lives that was now closed. When they finally left, neither of them looked back. They didn't need to. The lighthouse would always be a part of them, but it no longer defined them. As summer arrived, bringing long days and warm nights to the city, Elias's life continued to evolve. His story in Harbor Light had been noticed by a literary agent who reached out to him, asking if he had other work to share. The novella he'd been writing about the lighthouse keeper and his son was nearly finished, and the agent was interested in seeing it. It was both thrilling and terrifying. This was what he'd wanted: validation, opportunity, a path forward as a writer. But it also meant facing the possibility of rejection on a larger scale, of putting his heart on the page and having it judged by professionals, by the market, by readers he'd never meet. He talked to Margaret about his fears. They were in the bookstore late one evening, after closing, sharing tea and conversation as they often did. What if it's not good enough? Elias asked. What if I've been fooling myself, thinking I could actually do this? Margaret set down her tea and looked at him with those wise, knowing eyes. Elias, do you remember when you first walked into this store? You looked like a lost soul, searching for something you couldn't maim. Do you remember what I gave you? The Cartographer's Daughter. And why do you think I chose that book? Because it was about someone like me, someone who dreamed but was afraid to act. Partly, Margaret said, but also because I knew that if you read it, you'd understand something important. The Cartographer's Daughter spent her whole life preparing to leave, imagining her adventures, planning every detail. But the story ends as she's boarding the ship. Remember? Because the author understood that the real story isn't the preparation, it's what happens when you actually take the leap. I've taken the leap, Elias said. I left the lighthouse. I came to the city. I'm writing. Yes, but now you're at the next leap. Sharing your work with the world, risking rejection, putting yourself out there in a bigger way, and you're scared, which is natural. But Elias, being scared doesn't mean you're not ready. It means you care. It means this matters to you, and that's exactly why you should do it. Elias finished his novella 2 weeks later. He read it through one final time, made his last revisions, and then, with trembling hands, he sent it to the agent. Then he went about his life, trying not to obsess over what might happen, trying to trust that whatever came next was meant to be.